Hello, everybody, and welcome to the REVA. What date is it? I don't even know anymore. It's April 2025. We've got the electrifying news for you. And with me, as always, I have Mr. Eric Stevens joining us from Listowel. How are you today, sir?
I'm great, Mark. It feels like summer outside today, and just think 2 weeks ago we had snow. So I mean, I guess it's that time of year. It's April, so
Exactly. Also with me, Mr. Ian Graham, joining us from Parts Undisclosed. How are you today, sir?
Good, not too bad. I feel like I'm in a hunting camp, and I've got the picture behind me of whatever,
We
like nature and
we
stuff.
all know it's the witness protection program, Ian. You don't have to sugarcoat it. We know. We know.
It's very comfortable. Yeah.
Very good, very good. So yeah, we thought we would put together some electrifying news on this wonderful weather day here in late April. And Ian, you've got the deck. You're going to fire it up. Let's take a look.
Yeah. So we're going to start today with no snow, and we're going to talk about a trip to Mexico. So basically, I left January 2nd. Of course, go figure. January 1st, we had no snow. The grass was, there. And then overnight, we got dumped with like probably half a foot of snow. And that was the day that I left to Mexico. And if there was something that was going to discourage me from going there, it was the fact that not only did I kind of have to go out and shovel to get out of my driveway, but my snowblower belt decided to break as well partway through all of this. So
good old Murphy's Law.
exactly, you're not going. Maybe you should, stay home. So, anyways, I did leave and basically crossed the border. I'm not showing quite so much of my trip in the States because I think, for electric vehicles wise, going through the States now is actually really easy. And no real issues there. At the border, I did get pulled aside because I got told there was another Ian Graham who was a bad guy that they wanted to make sure that wasn't
Your
me.
evil twin, Ian.
Exactly. But anyways, the trip return was 9,000 kilometers, roughly. And basically, when you look at this, one day, 18 hours, when you work it out, it was 3 days in the States and 2 days in Mexico. Or you could say like almost a day and a bit. But anyways, this is the picture here to Mexico is when you cross the border. Basically, you get to this part and it says to Mexico, and it's just okay. Here we go. We're doing this. And for our audience to understand as well, the importance of this for me was not just the electric vehicle aspect, because we talked a couple of years ago about a guy named Patrick Nadeau who drove his Ioniq 5 like 19,000 kilometers to the same area of Mexico that I am in, but he went like an even longer route. And there's another gentleman from Quebec City who also has driven there. But for me, the importance of this was the fact that my parents did this for 25 years, driving to Mexico. And I kind of wanted to do it and see what it was like. So, and I'm really happy I did because this was some of the scenery. The Sierra Madre Mountains are just incredible. This is outside of Monterrey. And so some of the pictures I'm basically showing is you'll see like, the areas that I'm stopped in and to charge and that. And, charging wise, Mexico was pretty darn good. It's, of course, I'm in a Tesla Model Y, and that network's been there for a little while. But I'm going to show as well that there are some other Mexican charging spots as well that helped with all this trip. So from the Sierra Madre Mountains and then into the first charge in Monterrey. And again, as I showing with the mountains here, it's just it's beautiful. It's such a different landscape when you're traveling through there. And the first stop that I did. Right, that for me was the big one because I charged fully in Laredo, Texas, and I'm like, okay, crossing the border, and here we go. And once I got to my first charge, I'm like, okay, this is good. I feeling more confident on this. And then I got another Mexican gentleman came in to charge, and chatting with him, he's like, "Ah, you'll be fine." Like he had gone to Guadalajara and all these other places. "Ah, you'll be fine," you know. And Mexicans have a lot of confidence. And like, "Oh, you can do it, no problem."
Is it unfounded confidence, though, Ian? That's what we really want to know.
Yeah. Just, that was the part that made me a little nervous. Like, "Oh, you can do this," It's like, great. So, and to that point, Mexico is different now too, in that when my parents drove, there were no toll roads. It was, libres they called, which means free roads. Quota is the charge rolls, the toll roads. And the libre roads, I mean, that gets pretty interesting. That's where you get more into the interesting cobblestone roads and small towns and everything else. And these new toll roads are quite something. They're used by the trucks and everything else, and they're more than worth it with the toll. So one of the places also I stopped is Matawala, I think is how you say it, and it's this would have been my second stop. Now, beside the Tesla charger, there was Evergo, and this is the Mexican version. And there was a gentleman here with the Volvo that was charging. And I chatted with him a little bit, and of course, I'm hoping that they might speak some English, and for most part they do, because my Spanish is okay. But anyways, and he said, it's worked for them with the electric vehicle aspect of things, no problems that way. So this is another company in Mexico that's quite used.
Yeah, they're using the CATL chargers here, actually. So the company that makes those is CATL, and those are quite nice units, actually, very nice units.
Yeah, exactly. And the nice thing is, this place just back here, this is in an OXXO, and OXXO is well known as the 7-Eleven of Mexico, the variety store basically.
Yeah.
But beside it, there was a restaurant there, and then here also there was this beautiful Mexican restaurant, and it had like tortas, tacos, you name it, and the food was incredible. And that's one thing I absolutely love about Mexico is like, yeah, you can, find the McDonald's if you want. It's not worth it. Go find a Mexican restaurant, and even for the burgers in Mexico are incredibly amazing because they almost tried to outdo themselves with the size of the burgers. So from there, Matawala, I went then to kept driving, and I stayed overnight in San Luis de Potosi. I did a quick charge up there, and then from there to Guadalajara. There was another Evergo that I stopped at for a little break that just happened to come across, and Guadalajara is something else. You want to see snails at a moving pace. The traffic is just nuts there. With that, it doesn't really move that fast. The one thing I didn't like with the charging when I got to Guadalajara is that it was in a mall, but to find the actual chargers was not 1, 2, but 3 floors down underground. And so it took a little while to find it. I did come across, though, there was charging a Cybertruck there. And so Mexico, basically it was released first in the US. It wasn't Canada second. It was Mexico. Actually, it was second for the Cybertruck that got the release. They got it before Canada. So anyways, from on there, from Guadalajara to where I am, just north of Puerto Vallarta, I didn't need any more charging. But just to show you, this route is, again, the toll road on the way to Tepic. And then, of course, you have Tequila. And you can see all the tequila plantations and everything that way. A friend and I, we actually did make a day trip to Tequila, which was just amazing. And from that point, it's, the excitement for me built up when I got to a certain point and I could see the ocean. And I'm like, oh my God, we're almost there. And then once I got off the toll road, it was literally the road right to my town I'm in called the Cruz de Guanacoxley. And I'm like, as soon as I saw that, I was like, we did it. We're there. And here we are. We're in Mi Casa. And it worked out really well. So while I was there, I did install a charger. And I put it in this. I bought it from Amazon, this metal box, just because, on the side of the home, I didn't want to have anyone to kind of look at the thing and go, oh, this is something maybe I could steal.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So we did this metal charger here and that. So one thing that was interesting as well is some people, they see a Tesla and whatever. BYD is a company that's imported by Arda now. They have electric vehicles. I went and stopped and checked them out, and pretty impressive as well. But then every once in a while, I would get somebody who would be like, "You have Ontario license plates? You drove all the way from Ontario?" And it was great conversation. And it was funny because there's a Facebook group called On the Road to Mexico, and this guy posted, he's like, I'm living here full time now, and I'm seriously considering an electric vehicle. And I just saw somebody with a Model Y and Ontario license.
You made the local news.
I did. And it's funny. I reached out to the guy, like actually on the chat, on the comment section, I said, that most likely is probably me. And sure enough, it was when I parked at the BYD dealership and he saw this because he had happened to be looking at BYD for his electric vehicle. And so I've been in touch with him, just to give him some insight on stuff. One funny thing.
You'll have to send him this video link.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. One funny thing with all of this too is, of course, we're trying to be careful with the politics that we get into, and unfortunately, we know with Tesla they've had some incidents of vandalism. Well, I parked beside this 5-story hotel, did a bunch of errands and stuff, came back, and my car was vandalized. Unfortunately,
oh no!
It was vandalized with soap and water.
Oh.
That's a good kind of vandalizing.
Somebody washed it?
And here's the best part. I parked it. I went a second time and nothing happened. I went a third time and it was completely cleaned again. I don't know who did it. Thank you very much. But it was probably somebody, to do it and then looking to maybe get paid, but they weren't around. And they did a great job. The one thing I love with Mexico too is the people are so interesting and genuine, and they really want to be helpful and everything else. And this person who would have watched this, of course, they would have probably been looking to get a few pesos, and that would have been fine. But I didn't see where they were at. I don't know if because I parked by this hotel, if that was part of the service. Maybe they're like, "Oh, it's got to be it's a foreigner. He's probably at the hotel. Okay, I'll wash the car." But anyways,
so you got it washed twice.
Twice, and they did a great job. Yep. So,
I know where you'll be going back to.
Yeah, exactly. So one of my friends that visited me, actually, like I said, we went and did a trip to Tequila, and you can see in the middle picture of myself there the big the balls. This is like the tequila plant has all these leaves. But then they take these leaves off, and these balls, they just keep growing.
The agave, yeah.
The agave, yeah. And from this, they'll smoke the agave, kind of through like a burn process. And once they do that, and Eric, I'm not sure because I know you've been down a few times, but they gave us a sample, and it's like this stringy type of, I don't know even how to call it, but it was so sweet. It was like completely different candy. It was amazing. Yeah.
Well, that's sort of the pre-fermentation there, right? You want something with a lot of sugar to make the alcohol. So
exactly, yeah. And this flavoring was totally different than anything I've ever tried. So we did a Jose Cuervo tour with this, and it was quite good. We did find a charging spot at a hotel, and you can see the gentleman on the bottom here. He's unplugging the car in that, and it was 500 pesos, which works out to about $30+, $36. It's expensive, but then if you think of it like, well, I got parking, I'm in an underground hotel, it's nice and cool, and it was totally worth it. Other than that, we would have had to stop in Compostela. The other quick spot that we went to is just this little picture on the top is San Sebastian, and there's this canyon. You go up into the Sierra Madre Mountains, and this is where it gets interesting with an electric vehicle, is that When you're going up in the mountains, of course, you're losing some of the range and everything else. So we got to San Sebastian, which is one of the oldest towns in Mexico, like 16th century. And once we did all our touring around and we came home, we started at 265 kilometers. And with going down the hill, we ended up with 350 kilometers, just to give you an idea of how much regenerative braking makes an impact. In fact, my charging from Guadalajara to Puerto Vallarta, again, you're up in that mountains, and when you're going down, it said I would arrive to my place with about 20% range. I arrived with 35, just because, again, all the regenerative on that. So,
Wow.
yeah. So, yeah. And you know what? Having a car down there, especially because I was there for almost 3 months, made a lot more sense than to rent a car.
Yeah.
You know,
Certainly financial sense for sure.
yeah. And the insurance, you pay extra insurance when you're in Mexico. They have their own insurance. You can't use your Canadian or US. And the insurance, that was not cheap. That was like $900, I think. So yeah, it's pricey.
Okay. That would be an additional expense then for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So that, but if you figure out that a rental of a car in Mexico for a week could get you from 700 to $1,000 a week, then that's where that offset makes a lot of sense on that as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Wow. So with the 9,000 kilometer journey, did you have any close moments that you thought you might be having some range anxiety?
yes. So I was not kidding, literally 4 minutes away from the next charger. And all of a sudden the road became a Y. And where I needed to go to the right was held up by a transport truck that I couldn't get over. And so I was forced, because of the car behind me, to go to the left, which was another toll road. And it was the only way I could turn around was to drive another 25, 30 minutes one way and 25, 30 minutes the other way, and then get back on. And that was, for me, that was the nerve-wracking point, because it was like I was down, at that point, going to be down like 25% left. And so, or maybe even less than that. So I did make it. I did get turned around, and that was the only point that really frustrated me. And it was just one of those things. When you're navigating in Mexico, that's the other thing, for anyone watching this who's never been in Mexico. They have these weird things, it's called laterals. And basically the middle part of the road, it could be 2 lanes on either side that go, back and forth. But if you want to get off to this part of whatever of the town, you have to go off on the lateral. And if you want to do a U-turn, you have to go off on the lateral, drive up to the next set of lights, and then the lights are set up so that everybody stops, but then it gives you the turn signal. And so cars are coming to you this way, turning left, and you're going this way, turning left to do your U-turn. It's a different system. I don't know that I find it effective, because by the time you go through all the lights, you've sat there for a while. But it's Mexico. It's like, mañana. They'll turn mañana. Yeah. But anyways, and then coming home, and our audience may have heard, aspects of like wondering about CATL. I did not have any issues whatsoever, but on the way home, I got pulled over twice by the National Guard. And the first time was a little nerve-wracking, because the guy was letting a bunch of people through, and then he saw me and he's like, "You, over." And what are you going to do? You got guys with the big machine guns there and all this stuff. It's military. And so basically, a guy in a white shirt came up. He just said, "Where are you going?" At first, he's asked if I speak Spanish. And if you're smart, you say no. And you just say, "No, I speak English, sorry." And then he started talking to me English, no problems, asked for the passport and my tourist card. And then, "All right, have a great day," and move on. So,
Okay.
yeah. So that was the only nerve-wracking aspect of the trip that way, And if you go further north on the West Coast, the Sinaloa, which many people probably heard of, the Sinaloa cartel, there can be some issues up that area, to the point that some people will actually drive around it just to avoid it.
Wow.
And that might be one of the advantages of sticking to the toll roads largely there too, Ian, is
Yeah.
they're probably well policed and covered as well too. So
Well, and to that point, it's interesting. I met a couple who their tire blew, and there was a phone number for the Green Angels, and they called it. And not only did they come, but they were able to figure out the tire situation and get it off, get a new one on, and away they went.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a great aspect with that too, But my dad always said every day in Mexico is an adventure, and he was not kidding.
What a fantastic journey. And like you said, it took each way took about 4.5 days.
Roughly 4 3/4. Yeah.
Okay.
Like I would have.
Hey, you weren't driving constantly, right? You drove like what, 10 hours, 12 hours a day?
10 to 12 hours a day. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And, and here's one other quick thing to that point as well. The full self-driving in Canada and the US was easily 95% of the drive. Easily. And it went right to the chargers. It was incredible. Mexico, while I was down there, got the full self-driving implemented, but the communication is different. Once you cross into Mexico, your warranty is also no longer valid because Mexico is not considered part of North America, whatever reason. And then the cell service is not part of it as well. So I did some full self-driving in Mexico, but there's a few times where they have when you're going down these huge steep valleys, the transport trucks have these purple lines in the middle that basically will direct you that you can go to an off ramp if you suddenly lose your brakes, and they'll slow you right down. They have a certain name for it. It's pretty interesting, but the full self-driving did not like those purple lines. It was
okay.
Heck is this?
Well, what a fantastic journey! Thanks so much for sharing that with us. That was certainly a great journey.
Yeah, it was, and I would do it again in a heartbeat. And just quick, this is the casa, the place that my parents built in the 1990s, and in the background you can see that's the Bay of Banderas, which is the third largest bay in the world, and Puerto Vallarta is across the bay, and we see the whales every day in the bay. They come from BC and Alaska. They have their calves there. It's incredible. I can't say enough good things about it, and lots of great, interesting birds, and iguanas and all that. So
fabulous.
Would you say the way back in was maybe a little smoother, maybe after learning a few things, or do you think it was about the same, or pretty smooth both ways?
Going home felt smoother to a point. I understood more what was going on. It navigated me a little bit on a different direction going to Lyon. But through Lyon, then it took me through another kind of a town that was cobblestone. But the churches, that's another thing. Some of the history in Mexico with the churches and the buildings, it's incredible. Yeah. So.
And you would if you were to do this again next year, your confidence would be much higher because you've already done it successfully a couple times.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and you kind of know what to look out for. And I think the next time that I do it, I like to explore a little bit more on the way down and even on the way back, not just go 10 hours a day, know? Yeah. Like even San Luis de Potosi, that city is also got a huge amount of history. That I've been told is very interesting to check out. So, yeah, it's good.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Move on then to, this is great. I love this story that we're getting. And, this is just showing a future that is very bright.
Yeah. Yeah, so CATL, they are the world's largest automotive battery manufacturer. For the longest time, they've pretty much put all their eggs in the LFP, lithium iron phosphate basket for battery production. But now they have a new it's not really a new chemistry per se. There's a lot of other companies that are doing it. But it's a sodium ion is what they're looking at right now. And there's actually another company that I follow called EOS Energy in the US, and they actually make battery storage systems with sodium ion. And sodium ion is wonderful because it's got excellent charge discharge capabilities. It handles temperature extremely well. But one of the challenges that it's always had is that its energy density was not very high. So it was excellent for like grid tied storage and storage applications like that. But CATL, it looks like, has gotten a bit of a breakthrough, and they've managed to push the energy density close to that of lithium iron phosphate now. And the beautiful thing about sodium ion is that it uses very low cost raw ingredients to make the battery. It's very plentiful and very abundant stuff out there. So they've talked about how now they're actually looking at converting most of their production now eventually from LFP to the sodium ion as well too. And they, there's some interesting use cases here. They're going to make a battery that they call it a 500 kilometer battery, but that's under the Chinese cycle. So in North America, that would probably realistically be about 400 kilometers. But that's still very usable for many, many, many people. Yeah. And then they're talking about making a heavy truck battery as well too, for this, which I think is actually one of the bigger applications for this as well too. And going deeper into their details here too, they also talk about combining this technology with possibly they call a dual power battery with LFP batteries, or even with NCM based chemistries as well too, for your lithium based chemistries. And they're showing in some cases charge rates that are up to 12C. 12C is huge because most of your NCM batteries that we use today in electric vehicles typically charge at up to maybe a 2C rate. So this is 6 times faster than your existing traditional batteries that are used in EVs today from a charging standpoint. Now, I see the article and it says as fast as pumping gas. I find that a little bit of a clickbaity, because the other challenge to that is how do you deliver that much power to a car? And do we really need it to be as fast as pumping gas? Because most of us, when we stop and charge, you plug in and go to the washroom, grab a bite to eat. So you don't necessarily need to have it as fast as a pumping gas. But still, it's getting to the point now where the batteries are starting to not be the limitation anymore. Now, we're getting closer and closer to solving both the cost and the charging side aspect from the battery standpoint. So that's what's exciting about this technology, and it's a big step in the right direction, I think, towards the EV industry.
Exactly, and that's again, everybody's working on, not everybody, but many different companies are working on solutions for batteries, and that brings new products, it brings new chemistries, it brings new ideas, and this is just another point of somebody else that has come up with, let's keep working on this. It wasn't great when we started with it, or when someone else started with it, but now we've got a few other ideas that can make it faster, cheaper, more efficient, and that's perfect.
Yeah. The one thing that I kind of realized with my trip as well, and it's kind of interesting with this, I got thinking, like, what is the ultimate range of battery that would make everyone happy? And to me personally, I think 600 kilometers is more than perfect, because at 400, if you're not needing to stop already because you got to have a bathroom break or whatever, and also to even drive 400 kilometers at one time, you're talking a good 3-4+ hours. Your body does need kind of the break. And then when you have this aspect of the 5-minute, fastest pumping gas, do you even really need it to be that fast? Because if you actually take a proper stretch and everything else, you're probably going to be doing that for 10-15 minutes anyways. So, it's great that they can do this. I thought the 12C at first had something to do with temperature. At this temperature it would charge, because that's also can be a factor in things too. But, now I understand with Eric what you're telling me on this type of thing. But, like it's saying here, 300 miles in about 5 minutes. And how many people are still probably going to be stretching or in line for their Tim Hortons coffee, or, and your car's charged,
Yeah.
That's kind of where I'm kind of trying to be more realistic about really what our kind of actual needs are. And I got thinking, like, I think the 600-kilometer range is a perfect range for any car. And you know, the charging, even if it was 10 minutes to do that, I don't think that's you know, too off from everything. And of course, the other aspect of it is like the majority of the time we charge at home. So for the road trips to take 10 minutes to charge back up to 600 kilometers, I wonder how many people would even get past the 500 kilometers before they finally have to stop.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and for those that don't know what C rate actually means, it's kind of a multiplier for your charge rate. So that means like a 50 kilowatt hour battery pack would actually be able to charge at 12C. Your peak charging rate is 600 kilowatt.
Okay. Yeah. It's really interesting. And again, you know, it's just showing that the technology is really advancing quite dramatically.
It keeps marching forward, that's for sure. Many different people working on the problem.
Yeah, for sure. All right. And then we have the EV subsidies taking another hit, but this is a little different. When I first started reading this article, and then I realized, this actually has more to do with the agriculture aspect of things.
Yeah, we talked previously about tariffs that were placed on different vehicles. China, for example, had a hefty tariff put on their vehicles, their EV vehicles that were coming to Canada. And of course, with our experience recently with tariffs from the United States, we've been able to see it from the other side as well, that when you take a hit from somebody from tariffs, you typically retaliate back and you have a tariff against that particular country for whatever. This, the Western farmers have got together and they're saying to the federal government, maybe we should re-examine this tariff because China imposed a tariff on Canada, and that was as it related to canola oil, which of course has grown quite a bit out west. And there's now a hefty tariff on the oil that Canada used to sell to China all the time. They still do, but now there's a hefty tariff on it. And they did it because the EV tariff that we put on China is hurting them too. Their manufacturers like BYD and others are not able to import directly into Canada without having that vehicle hit with 100% tariff. So the sales of those vehicles are certainly going to disappear quite a bit because the price is basically doubled. Now, the Western farmers in Canada have just wanted the federal government to realize that the tariffs that they placed on China have come back in agricultural tariffs against Canada from China. And I just wanted to point this out to everybody that, you know, we maybe look at the tariffs slanted based on what we're talking about here, EV vehicles, but it's a multifaceted thing. Tariffs can spur other tariffs that aren't even related to EVs or cars or transportation at all. And this is one of the things that has hit Canada recently. So I just wanted to show the other side of the coin. And of course, the articles that we're showing, we link them below. So if you want to go into more detail, you can click on that link and read as you wish. But this is the reality too. Both sides of the tariffs do hurt the countries, as again we've seen recently with the United States.
Yeah, and I think the tariff situation, you know, when we applied this tariff, it was largely because the U.S. applied the tariff and applied some pressure on us to do that as well too.
Yep.
You know, obviously now circumstances are different today. I've never really been a big fan of how we just blindly applied 100% tariff because, in my opinion, that number didn't have a real strong justification behind it. I've always been a big fan of how the European Union applied a tariff against Chinese automakers based on the state influence that the Chinese government received and how much subsidy they have. And their tariff, they have put tariffs on Chinese manufacturers, but significantly less than we have. In my opinion, it's a much more intelligent approach that the European Union did. And so I agree from the standpoint that we should revisit this, especially given the geopolitical situation today. It certainly should be revisited. Not only that, but maybe this is even an opportunity to take some Chinese manufacturers who possibly, don't have a huge state influence like BYD, for example, only has, every Chinese company has some state influence, but you take a company like BYD and maybe invite them to build a factory in Canada, maybe even a battery plant as well too. And that maybe changes the equation as well.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. That definitely could make a change for us, again, based on what's currently happening.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, like all the politics as usual is just, getting in the way, and it's been amplified even that much more thanks to our southern, neighbors with this aspect. I mean, tariffs was not really a word that we had heard much about until, somebody started going off on it quite a bit more. But I think there might be an opportunity for Canada to work something out that respect. Again, it's a bit of a, dare I say, a bit of a hot potato when we get into some of these things, because what you do for one might affect, of others. So, and to that point, Eric, you said about a car manufacturer, a battery plant. I'm working with Plug and Drive right now in St. Thomas, and right across the street from me is where the Volkswagen battery plant is going in. And I actually talked to a city councilor today, and she was telling me, trying to explain to people about the benefits of something like this, it's taking a little bit of time too.
Yeah. And again, the industry is one of those things where the automotive industry, it takes years to build a factory. It takes years to set up the infrastructure for these kinds of things.
Yep.
And the situation that we're facing today, one way or another, is going to be temporary.
Yeah.
And so automakers can't be just looking at the today. They got to look at what's the reality going to be like 5 years from now, and build infrastructure to meet that requirement. So that's why you're seeing a lot of car companies today, coming out and still making, even though there's been a clawback, there's been a pullback a little bit because of the current realities today. Mm-hmm. Still, many of the big plans are going forward. General Motors just made a big announcement that they're not going to be exiting their Mexican factories and building EVs in Mexico. So, things like that. We're not going to see the auto industry's, everything's changing week by week right now. So the industry is not going to make any drastic changes. They're just going to mitigate today and deal with it. So
yeah, and that's the thing, is like you said, it's like you just don't plop a factory down. You can talk all you want and make, say whatever you want, but when it comes down to the reality of it, like even next to the factory is the Volkswagen dealership is being built. I'm watching it every time I'm in St. Thomas, and even that progress, it's interesting where they get to each day, but that takes a while. Yeah. All right. Now it was so funny because Eric, you brought this up, and I had just read the same article, and I actually subscribe to Clean Air Alliance, and this is something that they have been really pushing. And the more I read into this, the more I'm like, why are we not doing this? Like in this whole moratorium aspect, I'll let you explain that, but it's quite frustrating when you realize the potential is basically 100%.
Yeah. So back like 15 years ago, when Ontario was just starting to get into wind power and starting to invest in some of the stuff, there were a lot of advertising campaigns and a lot of FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, going around about the wind industry. How wind turbines cause cancer, how they kill cows, how they kill birds, all the stuff that was going around. And so to appease some of the people out there, and I don't know how this made sense to me. It really doesn't make sense to me, but they put a moratorium on putting wind turbines in the lakes. And I found it interesting because we could put a wind turbine, within a kilometer of somebody's house, but the putting a wind turbine 17 kilometers off the coast in a lake was somehow taboo. So it didn't make sense to me, but I guess this moratorium was very political, in my opinion, and it was put on just to try to appease some people. And at the time, there was some technical reasons for it as well too, because the Great Lakes are freshwater. A lot of the wind farms that are out there today are in salt water, and so they don't get exposed to a lot of ice. But the Great Lakes in some areas can get a fair bit of ice. So there was some technical challenges that have been dealt with. That being said, the realities today are very different. the Great Lakes are an area where there is massive, massive wind potential on the lakes, just absolutely massive. And a lot of the technical obstacles that people were concerned about are no longer there. Wind turbines now are much cheaper to build than they used to be. We know a lot more about them today than we did 15 years ago. And there's a lot more technologies thanks to the Norwegians and the Danish and the Dutch and all of them as well too, been building wind turbines in water areas as well too. Even the Dutch have a freshwater one, actually. And, you know, so the reality is very different today. And I think the government needs to take a step back and take a look at this and go, you know, maybe we should be looking into this, you know, and maybe lift that moratorium and then start looking at some of these technical proposals more seriously.
Yeah, it makes sense that, again, that there's so much wind out on those lakes and we're just ignoring it completely. Again, to appease a group 15 years ago, this moratorium needs to be reviewed. Absolutely. It's something that, and for people that are saying that these things are an eyesore, which I don't agree with, but what better to have like 10 kilometers offshore? Like nobody sees it. It's not, no one even knows it's there. It's just quietly generating electricity and sending it back to the mainland through an underwater cable. Like what a perfect scenario.
Yeah. Sorry, flat earthers, but the earth is round. And if you put these far enough out, you won't see them. So.
Yeah. And you know, to the point about the you know, Danish and Norwegians and that, but also I'm going to bring up the Scottish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Scotland is, as far as I understand, is 90% power is wind turbines. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it just another goes to prove. And then you know, the British also have put in turbines that are now some of the world's most powerful as well. So something that really bothers me when I get, you know, when we talk about the political aspect of things, is that suddenly we put this moratorium on, and you know, considering how long it was that we did this, and it's like saying, well, we still need to fight over rotary phones, even though we got all this technology with smartphones now. And it's like, why are we even talking about the moratorium from this, you know, time period? It's ridiculous. And you know, when you compare this to the nuclear aspect that they're now looking at building, and to the same point about saying about to build a factory, et cetera, takes X amount of time, these things would go up in no time.
Yeah.
And nuclear. And it's like, it's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, and now also the geopolitical situation has changed even with the nuclear now, because we're looking at building small modular reactors, which is a great technology. I think it's a good technology, but you know, now the problem is they required enriched uranium. And in Canada, we use CANDU reactors, which don't use enriched uranium, which means now we have to buy that from the U.S. Mm-hmm. And so now that opens up a whole new can of worms. Do we now start enriching our own uranium, or do we, you know, look for alternatives? So
yeah. So, well, let's hope that, you know, something gets decided sooner than later. And you know, actually, I'm not sure if many in our audience will know. I'm trying to think of the name. The Canadian wind turbine company was one of the first to figure out the recycling of the blades. And it'll come to me probably, remember maybe the name of Vespus or something like that. I think it was. It's a Canadian company, and they, and you know, and that's the other thing too about the, you know, you hear that stuff about the blades aren't able to be recycled, they go to landfill, blah blah blah. No, that's all changed. That's all dramatically changed. So, anyways, all right. So we don't want to get into politics, do we?
Well, we don't want to, but I did want to release this information that just came out today, actually, for timely news.
Yep. The federal election.
That's right. Federal election is happening Monday here in Canada, and the PC party, the leader Pierre, had promised to end electric vehicle sales mandates if he is elected. So, for those that were unknown, we do have a kind of a carrot and stick system in Canada where we ask manufacturers to make so many EVs. If they achieve that, then that's all great and dandy. If they don't achieve it, there are some fines placed to the manufacturer that they have to pay, hefty fines. So that encourages manufacturers to, one, continue supplying Canada with EVs, and two, price them accordingly so they can be sold to the public or reasonably priced. And then in the volume of sales that they do, based on how many gasoline vehicles they sell, there's a ratio that we want them to sell X amount of EVs over that period of time based on how many gasoline vehicles they have sold over previous time periods. So it is a carrot and stick type approach, and I think it's been working pretty well. We've had quite a number of different manufacturers that have supplied Canada with an ever increasing amount of EVs and different types of EVs, different categories, and to my knowledge, we've seen more and more and more come to our shores. So I think it has been working quite well, and I would be sad to see it disappear and our EV choices dry up. So hopefully Pierre understands this, or his party does, and they may reconsider if they are elected. But I just wanted to make it known to people out there who are voting, if you're voting on a certain issue, you'd like to have all the information, and this is part of the puzzle.
Yeah, in my opinion, this is just politics. He's going out there trying to throw something out there to see if he can make it stick. We have seen, and not just in Canada, but there's many other places around the world that have EV mandates as well too. We're not alone in this. Many countries in the European Union and other places in the world have EV mandates as well. And as you said, Mark, it is proving to work. It has been effective. And I think we're even seeing that in some other forms as well too. We're now starting to see in Canada a couple electric vehicle options that are not available in countries that don't have EV mandates. So an example I can think of right now off the top of my head is the Kia EV5, which is now going to be a model that'll be sold in Canada, but not in the United States. So we're definitely, I think the carrot and stick approach has worked. I mean, a situation might arise as we get closer to that date that maybe the date has to move a little bit for a good reason or something like that. But it's good to draw that line in the sand and give a target and start pushing people towards it. And it's worked, and it continues to work. So,
yeah. The part that bothers me with all of this is the middle section here of Mark Carney's vision for Canada, where you don't get to choose what kind of car you drive, where prices on everything skyrocket to fund radical ideology. Okay, back to this slide, right? I'm sorry, what was it you wanted to drive a gas car for that is like, 15, maybe 20% efficiency, and you're going to be chained to a pump, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, it's back to the rotary phone versus a smartphone. And, every time you hear someone say to me, I don't want to be forced into buying, an electric car because well, you know what? In 10 years from now, 2035, I don't think it's a matter of choice anymore. It's like common sense, because the technology, look at where we're at, what we're doing already. By 2035, I think it'd be silly to even consider buying a gas car at that point. It's just not going to make any sense.
Yeah. I was going to say, if users want to, they're still allowed to ride a horse and buggy too. Nobody's going to pull those gas cars away from them.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like their choices have disappeared. Let's keep in mind that the gasoline segment is the overwhelming majority currently, and yes, EVs have been eating into that market share for some time, but it's not like next year or the year after or 3 years from now that there will be no gasoline cars to pick through. That is not the case. That is just more FUD that the media has spread.
Yeah, exactly. So, all right. Well, let's move on from the politics into. Are we getting into other politics here? No. Okay, we're not.
So I wanted to. My stories. I'm a little bit of a theme. I'm trying to be positive. Obviously there's been a lot of negative in the world the last 98 days and counting. I'm not going to say days of who and what and where. But basically, the positive here is that the electric vehicle infrastructure in Canada also continues to grow and grow at a very good pace. So now we have over 13,000 public stations. That includes DC fast chargers and level 2 AC charging stations as well too. So, but both of them, all these numbers are increasing right now. The total number of chargers are increasing in Canada. So the infrastructure continues to grow, which means that getting into an EV and owning an EV is getting easier and easier for more people every year here in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's always good news to let people know that that this is a growing segment, and with the growing number of cars comes a growing amount of infrastructure. And having extra chargers set up in your region of the world is always a positive, no matter what. Yes, we'd like to make sure they're maintained properly and they're available all the time, but adding to the overall total is certainly a good thing and continues to be.
Yeah. And that's the thing, it was interesting. Even just today, I was talking to a gentleman, and his concern was being stranded somewhere. And he was talking about like driving to Oregon and driving to Vancouver and this and that. And I'm like, have you looked at PlugShare? And just to see. And I said to him, on average, you're going to drive probably about 300-400 kilometers before you're going to have a stop, and most places you're going to be fine. And that, like you say, the network, it's only growing constantly in this type of thing. And so if you read into this article, I love how they get into the by company. So the flow chargers, ChargePoint, Electrify Canada, like get into showing you all the different sections of where they've advanced these chargers to, and it's only growing from that point. So I think over time, it is going to get to a point where it's almost, I dare I say, too many chargers. I know it sounds odd to say, but when I look at Toronto, and I understand, there's that way many more people, but when I look at the amount of chargers, it's crazy the amount, and how many people could just charge at home basically, rather than expanding it a little further out. Don't make it so dense within Toronto. Expand it out so that we have more for the northern aspects of things, etc. But it's going to work out one way or another. All right. 7Gen. This is a company I've not heard of. And of course, it's a UK company, but they got some interesting stuff that they're doing here with us.
Yeah, 7Gen has set up in British Columbia, and they've taken a different approach to EV transportation. They're looking at the small to medium-sized trucking, and they're looking to help companies that want a green footprint to deliver regionally or between cities or within cities their products. And what 7Gen has decided to do is they will help any company that wants to have a greener transportation system. And what they do is they review what the company drives, how far they drive, where they go, what they do, how long the trucks are on the road. And then what they do is they take care of the infrastructure for the company. They will install chargers on routes that the company drives on often. They will put together a plan that shows what is currently out there, what they could add to the system, and how that would allow that said company to deliver their products using an EV mid-sized transportation truck. In this case, being a straight truck, 26-foot truck. But that is a kind of a unique change for a company to roll in the charging infrastructure to assure the company that's buying the EV or leasing the EV that they will be able to charge that truck within city or en route in order to complete the work that they've set that EV truck to do. So they're guaranteeing the success of the truck. They're guaranteeing that the driver's not going to face any range anxiety because the stops have been set up ahead of time based on how that company functions and what delivery and routes they actually have. So I thought that was a very unique way, a business model of allowing EV trucking to work right out of the box, because they will build the infrastructure and place it so that the company will have a successful run transitioning to an EV truck over a gasoline truck.
Mhm.
I like this. This is a great idea. It's actually really creative, because if you think about it, there's a lot of companies out there that, maybe they've done the math, maybe they look at it and you go, well, maybe electric does make sense, but I don't know where I need to put my infrastructure. I don't know what to do, and I don't have the resources or the manpower to figure that stuff out. Here you've got a company that's going to come on. Don't worry, we'll take care of that for you.
Exactly.
And they take away that pain point for them, and makes that adoption much smoother, much better, and it maybe even allows the company to build that information and that that knowledge sort of through this natural means as well too. So I think it's very creative, and it's interesting, and I hope it does well. And I think we're getting to the point in our society where you start getting commercial fleets and transportation like this. Companies that run standard diesel trucks are going to have difficulty competing with these types of businesses too in the future. So,
yeah, when you're paying somewhere between 5 and 6 times less for the fuel for these vehicles, that makes a big difference when it comes to the transportation bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that margin might even create that middle ground as well too for a business like 7Gen to make a bit of money in there too. So, yeah.
I think the other aspect to this, of course, is besides the fuel costs, of course, is the maintenance costs on all this. If anything, I think their maintenance costs will still be tires, of course, brakes to a certain point, maybe. It's hard to say with the regen aspect of it all. That's going to be another cost savings on top of this. It'll be interesting to see. One other thing in terms of costs is the charging. If they know that they have the routes already figured out, and they get the chargers in place for those routes, would they maybe potentially get a better rate, hydro rate as well? Because it's constant, but rather than paying this amount, you're going to get a cheaper amount because you're constantly doing this route. You're going to know how many vehicles are going to use it per day, etc., and it's going to cost X amount. Okay, we'll give you a discount on this type of thing as well. So that'll be interesting to see how that works, because trucking routes, when it comes down to it, it's they're following a route. It's not like they're tourists going all over the place checking out different things. It's got its spot. So I think cost savings could be interesting as well.
Yeah, I was also in Vancouver last week, and one thing that's caught me. It's been a while. It's been almost 10 years since I've been in Vancouver before, and just how much has changed there. It is certainly. There is a very large percentage of electric vehicles on the road now in British Columbia, much higher than what's even here in Ontario. Substantial, I would say, easily double to triple the number of EVs are in BC now, and wide variety ones. I saw in the wild my first Jeep Cherokee Grand Cherokee EV was in BC, and so I'm seeing a wider variety of EVs there as well too, and the infrastructure that's gone in there too is also quite good. So. Yeah, they're taking it very seriously out there, and they're getting it there. So
yeah, I noticed that a year and a half ago even, so I can just imagine where it's at now. And also too, I've been reading about BC getting certain chargers put into certain spots that is just expanding that network with BC as well, further north. So yeah. All right. Well, we're going to finish the night off with this last slide here. Offering some fast charging here.
Yeah, so speaking of charging and how charging is changing, and speaking of British Columbia, this is On the Run has installed some of the first 400 kilowatt DC fast chargers in Canada. And these are brand new next generation ABB units. And I like this story for a few reasons too, because one of the things that's changed over time as well is, when the first DC fast chargers started coming out, a lot of them had some reliability issues and some other stuff. Well, many of these companies have learned from those issues now, and the new infrastructure they're having coming out are now easier to maintain, more reliable, and now higher power chargers as well too. In some cases, they're taking some of the existing infrastructure that was put in place, and they're upgrading it as well too. So here we're seeing a situation of a 400 kilowatt of the On Run, and they're going to expand this. They're going to put it into other areas in Canada, including Ontario and Quebec as well too. We're going to start seeing some of these units. And and not just it, but now we're even seeing this with like Ivy, for example, as well too. Ivy is taking out some of their older first generation chargers and now replacing it with newer chem power chargers. And these chem power chargers are very proven chargers in Europe, and they've now built a facility in North America, and they're manufacturing chargers for the North American market. So, so the infrastructure is growing, but not only is it growing, but it's getting better as well too.
That's great to see that hitting new highs for the delivery of electricity at these sites. Remember back in the days, 10, 12, 15 years ago, when we were all excited about a level 2 that showed up at the local mall. Well, things have gone a lot further since that point, and it's good to see, as Erica said, that the next generation of chargers are replacing older DC fast chargers, and with new technology and faster abilities. It's always great to see this, and hopefully we'll see some of these in Southern Ontario soon.
Mm-hmm. And to that point, it's just hopefully easing people's worries about, being stranded, as I heard today, and like I said to the gentleman, it's like, how many times do you do these road trips? Once a year. Well,
Yep.
and now if we have these type of things, and again, getting faster 400 kilowatt charging, etc. It's just gonna, after a while, the excuses for not getting EV is just gone. And I'm sure for the people that are in BC that are seeing these as well, like that's going to just impact the spreading, if you want to say, of the news about this type of stuff. It's like, oh, this is happening now, and more people are seeing this type of stuff. It just helps with that, confidence that these things are happening. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, that was quite a electrifying news segment. We ran a little bit long, but we were happy to share what we found this week with you. If you haven't already, please give us a thumbs up on the video, press that subscribe button, and you'll be notified the next time we release a video, which is, typically about once a month. And we're happy to share this information with you. Also, if you have interest, you can follow us on our Twitter feed, our X feed, which is WREVA Group, at WREVA Group, and you can see some of the updates that we put between shows on that X feed if you have interest in doing so. Let's go to do some shout outs. Move over to Ian. He had his hand up. I think he's got a shout out just ready to go. What's that, Ian?
Well,
yes.
He
shares a picture of a taco on his screen. Yes, indeed.
Tacos, and got the hockey game now. It's going to start. I'm going to give a shout out to Austin Matthews, who scored to make it 2-1 right at the end of our podcast. So I could not. The timing was perfect.
Very good. Very good. Eric, any shout outs from you?
Yeah, so we're recording this on April 24th. I imagine it'll come out shortly, but for those who watch it before the 28th, we're living in a world today where, in some cases, the traditional democratic institutions and democracy is on a little bit of challenge today. We're fortunate to live in a country like Canada, and we have a federal election coming up on Monday. And one of the things that democracy needs is participation of people. So I encourage people to go out and vote and participate, and that just makes our institutions and our government stronger for everyone.
Absolutely. Great point. Great point to let people know. Please get out there and vote. We don't care who you vote for, but make your voice known and vote, and help out Canada.
Yeah, make a decision that works best for your community and for yourself and your neighbors, and yeah.
Exactly.
It was good to see, though. I did read recently that this election has had record-breaking turnouts.
The advanced polls have had very good turnout. Yes,
it's great to see. Yeah.
Also, if you have a comment about the show, if you'd like to see certain articles, if you have a comment on some of the stories we've done today, put it in the comments. Let us know. We'd like to see your communication back and forth. And in the show notes, also, as mentioned, We will put the links to the articles that we referenced in today's show as well. Thanks very much, everyone, for joining us, and we'll see you next time and get together and find out what's happening in electrifying news. Good night.
Hasta luego.